Counselor Duncan, would you please honor with the prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the wonderful meal we just had. Lord, I thank you for all the people in this room and all those watching. I thank you for everyone. Most of all, I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, Lord. I ask that you would protect us, be with us, lead and guide and direct us as we go throughout the day, make the good decisions. And Lord, above all, let you be glorified. And I ask these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
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 I see one row. Okay, welcome everybody. And Shelley, would you like to do the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mary Baker Shaw.
Connie?
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Heather Buzzard.
Here.
Joe Bird.
Honey.
Julian Pope. Here. Sean Crittenden.
Honey.
Joe Deere.
Honey.
Hannah Duncan.
Amen.
Rex Jordan. Darrell Legg.
Here.
Wes Snowfire.
Honey.
George Paskowski.
Here.
Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Geo Smith. Denise Taylor.
Here.
Brenda Sweat. We have one.
Thank you, Shelley. And now for the approval of the minutes. Has everybody read them? Yes.
Move
Could I get a
approval.
motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, and our first report is the Claremore Service Unit. Is George Taylor here, please? Not today. Didn't George tell us he was going to try to be with us in the future?
Yeah. You know, Madam Chair, it's just like the third or fourth straight month they haven't reported. Right.
Yeah, this is true. Shelley, have you been in touch with him?
I have through email, and he has said he would join the link and be here for next meeting, and then it doesn't happen, so.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about his report?
What we may do next time is have maybe Shelley do a test to see if he's actually, zooming in, just to see if they have the capabilities.
Did we get a report?
We didn't even get a written report.
Yeah, we got nothing this time.
No.
Yeah, we haven't gotten anything.
Okay, I think that's a great idea, Speaker Bird, I really do.
Yeah, so at least
We'll know.
there won't be any excuses.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I do know a report that's in here that the people are here, and that's Dr. Steve Jones. Good afternoon, Dr. Jones. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Did you want to give Dr. Pettit a chance to speak before I give my report? I brought Dr. Gann with me and Dr. Montgomery in case we have some questions, and in light of everything going on, I thought you might have a lot of questions to ask. So I don't know if we want to run into his time or give him some time previously, but
Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones, that's really kind of you. We have him listed under new business. So he'll have
what?
new business. He's on our agenda to speak under new business, but thank you for that. That's really gracious of you. But if you'd like to go ahead and proceed with your report, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, we will do that. All right, so you have the written report in front of you that was given out to you. Just a couple of highlights, and I want to get into some other things that I want to draw your attention to. Also, at the end of my report, I'd like to be able to have Dr. Gann speak briefly and give you a quick update on some COVID matters that are going on, and then have all the questions after that time, if that is with your approval, Madam Chairperson.
Dr. Jones, Dr. Gann, is he going to be with us tomorrow for public health?
He will. He will be with you tomorrow for public health, and what he was going to give today is just a very brief, high-level look at what's happened over the last few days, just so that you guys have some information in front of you.
Okay, that sounds good. Is that okay with you, Councilor Dobbins? Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, so we'll move into the written report real quick. I'm not going to read those things to you, just kind of point out some of the highlights that we normally look at. The provider vacancy rate, 5.6%. That's a little bit higher than it has been previously, mainly because we have opened up some vacancies that were planned to be on the FY21 budget that weren't on the FY20 budget. And we are getting those filled. The referral rate for contract health approval rate is 96.3, again, staying in that 96 to 98 percentile approval. And then the projected annual expenses, you can see there at $42.6 million. If we move on over to the next page, just shows kind of some of the statistics on our patient visits and income, third-party revenue, and where we are compared to last year. We move over to the last page. This time we put a new page on there for you with the hotlines, how many positive cases we've seen as of the end of September. Now keep in mind this report always falls quite ways behind when we actually get a chance to give it to you. And then it breaks it out by clinic there on how many tests were done up through the end of September. That number's grown exponentially since this report was put together, of course. So some of the things I want to talk about and let you guys have some insight into are things going on other than COVID. Then I will get into the some COVID specific things at the end of this report. But the first thing I want to highlight on is the construction projects that we've got going throughout our system. Of course, Dr. Pettit's going to be speaking about the OSU project and where we are with it, so I won't steal his thunder. But there are a few significant things that significant milestones that we've hit recently. I'll move on to Stillwell. The Stillwell Loma P Main-Killer Clinic addition is moving along according to schedule. They've been erecting steel, and so we've been able to not have too many delays with weather or things of that nature. Some in-house projects that we have going on. At W.W. Hastings Hospital, we've installed ultraviolet filtration systems to help with our negative pressure rooms and just the filtration of our HVAC systems throughout the facility. We've also started converting the outpatient pharmacy area into an inpatient pharmacy area. As we all know, or as those of you familiar with Hastings, it's always been the inpatient pharmacy has been very, very small and in need of expansion for quite some time. So we're converting the outpatient where the outpatient pharmacy was to an inpatient pharmacy. We're also converting the clinical area where some of the outpatient services took place to a medical assisted treatment program center area. And that should free up some of our behavioral health space to facilitate more patient access in that area. At St. here at the Church and Mission Outpatient Health Center, we're preparing for receiving the vaccine. The new vaccine is one that has been approved first by Pfizer, requires ultra-cold storage, and those require a specific type of freezer. We have 2 currently. We have some more freezers that are going to be installed across our health system, but those require specific utilities, monitoring process to make sure that there's always fail-safes, and to make sure that they have dedicated electric and hooked up to the generator should something fail. So we're in the process of getting all that put together and getting those put in place. We've also equipped are working on equipping our pharmacy drive-through to increase our capacity there. As you know, when CNOC was built, it was built on the contingency of growth. So not everything was equipped initially when we got them. So some of the things we're doing currently are meet that need of numbers and access that we did not anticipate for a few years down the road. So we're catching up a little bit there. At Three Rivers, we're expanding our primary care area into the area where the pharmacy refill center was located previously. And that's going along on plan. The duty clinic's getting a new building, as you've seen right there next to the complex. So we're working on getting the equipment and everything ready to move into that new facility. Bonita, we're expanding our primary care into an area where medical records, once we went to electronic health records and everything became digital, there was an area there that we identified that we could utilize to expand primary care, and so we are doing that. Process improvement that we've got going on currently is obviously customer service is a key focus that we work on, and phone communication. That's an area that we can definitely improve on, and we've got some project improvements working there. We've also started a project with our pharmacy to increase our efficiency and improve our customer service there. We're always busy with surveys and accreditations. Those are ongoing things that happen all the time. Recently, we went through a very intensive survey to become acute stroke ready at our hospital. And we passed that survey and got our accreditation, so now we have the ability to see those patients, those stroke patients early on and prepare them for the next level of care that they may need, whether it be within our system or to be transferred outside our system. Our flu clinics are in full capacity and running. We've seen our schedule. We've published out to all the different flu clinics in the community that we have 5 teams currently that are going out and setting up and doing those throughout our community. Of course, anybody that sees their primary care provider, they can get their flu shots at our facilities when they're there getting seen. Today we have one of our teams is there at the old casino building where food distribution had occurred. And they'll be there from 9 to 4 today, and not only are they doing flu shots, but they're doing COVID testing. Some of our flu clinics we're doing testing, and some of them we do not have the capacity to do both, due to the facility or to the staffing that we have for that event. But today we're doing both at the Talpa location. To date, we've given 24,000 plus vaccines. As of last Wednesday, we get that report once a week to tell us how many vaccines we've administered. And now I'll move into some of our COVID things that are going on. With testing, to date, we've ran over 43,700 tests. That was as of 11/13. I haven't got the numbers on today's test yet, but that was as of the 13th. Many of our areas have doubled and tripled in the amount of people showing up for testing. So every time we set a record in one of our clinics drive-throughs, it seems like the next day we break that record. So as you know, the numbers have increased exponentially over the last few weeks. One of the things I do want to address is rapid tests. That name, rapid, is kind of a misnomer when it comes to these rapid tests that everyone seems to want to get instead of waiting for the reference lab test. The rapid test, and I sent this out hoping it would be distributed earlier on, I think last week, but a rapid test doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that turnaround in 15 minutes or an hour. Every one of those tests has to be ran. Each machine can only run one test every 15 to 20 minutes. So currently we have 73 of those Abbott machines located throughout our health system. When we collect the test, it still takes a tech to stand and run the test, report the test, get it entered into the EHR, and get the information back to the patient. So rapid does not necessarily mean you're going to get it turned around in 15 or 20 minutes. If we're taking the number of tests we're taking in every day at every one of our drive-thrus, that, as you can imagine, that gets bogged down, and we have to continually run those over and over and over until we get through the list of patients that have come through to be tested. So just want to throw that out there that rapid, the misnomer is not that you're going to get a rapid test immediately. And we are trying to purchase more of those Abbott Now machines. So as soon as they become available, we are purchasing them and getting as many out to the clinics as our labs will allow us to have in each facility. We've also purchased coats and permanent structures for our employees that are out testing instead of testing in the tents as we move into getting ready for the winter months. Anticipating that we'll be testing for quite some time. So we have permanent structures that we've ordered, and many of the facilities are already erected. Some facilities are a little behind in getting them due to the vendor. But once they arrive, then we put the utilities, the IT, insulate them in many cases, and get all the heat hooked up for anticipating what we're going to face this winter. We have purchased buildings that we will be able to put to use later when this is all over, we hope. and we'll be able to move those buildings and use them for other purposes later on. But we are in the process of getting those erected and functional at this time. We also anticipate using those structures for administering the vaccine once we get to that point. We have done some after-hours testing and are currently this week, I believe, and next week doing a few more of the after-hours availability for testing. And then after that, we'll be moving in from doing 8 to 12 to do testing 8 to 4 every day. So we're going to increase our hours of availability at each one of our facilities up to 8 to 4. And this is obviously based on weather and staffing could change that from day to day. We have received the Binax test, Binax Now. That's the test that is an antigen test that we are utilizing for Sequoia schools. That was phase 1 to get it in place there. Phase 2, we are currently implementing it at pace and going to be moving into using it for our CDCs and for Head Starts. So that's another testing modality that we've been getting that we're working on implementing into areas where it can be utilized the best. The next thing is probably vaccines. Vaccines are on the news constantly right now, and as you've heard, Pfizer has come up with they've been given the emergency use authorization for their vaccine. It's a 2-dose vaccine. You get the first dose, then 21 days later you get the second dose, and 28 days after that, the efficacy on that vaccine is 90%. There was another announcement this morning from Moderna, who has another vaccine that the efficacy rate is 94%. So we're not as familiar with that vaccine yet. We haven't received any of the information on it, but we have received information for the Pfizer vaccine. We should be receiving it in the near future, and we're prepared to receive it when they're ready to ship it. We will be getting that from the IHS, and there will be some strict criteria due to the availability of that drug on who gets administered that vaccine. The priority initially is going to be inpatient healthcare workers and elderly residential patients. So that will change as availability becomes more broad throughout our system. We've been working on plans for distribution to the general public and to those that will qualify for that vaccine for several weeks for the last month. And so our plan is in place, and we'll be ready to go when we have enough vaccine to start administering it broadly. We have also been working on a surge plan for several months on what we do when we get to this point where we start to see an increase in hospitalizations, and we are seeing that now. I think there's been several articles lately about our ICU beds being full. I just want to emphasize that is an hour-by-hour dynamic. That's not something that once they're full for the rest of the time until this is over. That changes hourly. So one day you may be full, and by noon you may have discharged or moved patients to med surge and off of ICU and have beds available. So just to be, for your information, that is an hour-to-hour dynamic. It's not something that is absolute. But we are working on different worst-case scenarios and how we will move forward with the surge plan. That's part of the reason that you saw last week that we closed dental services down to acute care only, to allow us to pull those employees into other areas of need as to meet these critically short areas that we have lots of employees either out or we're having to shift them around. So for the time being, we'll evaluate this month to month. Dental services will be acute care only, which means walk-in and emergent care. All the clinics will remain open for that, but we will have a lot of staff pulled out and utilize them in other areas. We've also made the decision to close the Marcoma gym and pull those employees out to utilize in public health for contact tracing. So that's another area where we're going, it goes along with our surge plan on trying to maximize our our most valuable resource, which is our staff, and utilize them where we can meet the need. And we will continue to monitor this closely and look at other areas that we may need to close down or reduce our access in order to pull employees out to use for other areas in our health system. At this time, we have several modalities that are available or medications that we're utilizing to treat our COVID patients. We're utilizing remdesivir, as we've talked about previously in some of our other meetings. Currently, that's utilized in the hospital for 5 days. I believe it's a 5-day stay to receive the infusion for the remdesivir. We're also participating in a clinical trial with Gilead to be able to use remdesivir in the outpatient setting. But there's very strict criteria on that, on how our patients and which patients are eligible for that trial. We've been using convalescent plasma when available, and now we are getting ready to enter into a pilot project with the Indian Health Service has contacted us, and they have a new monoclonal antibody, and it's a very difficult one to pronounce. I'll give it my best shot at Benzimab, which is, like I said, a monoclonal antibody that we have been chosen or selected, and along with another IHS area in Anchorage, Alaska, to be able to offer this to our patients. We're working through the process. We just had a meeting today at lunch or at noon to talk about the process, reporting, and all the things that go along with this drug, as it has its emergency use authorization released on it. And I'll give you an update on that later on. We're still working through all the process of how we're going to administer it, what patients are eligible for it. It has very strict guidelines on who is eligible to have this drug administered to them. I know that's a lot of information. I just wanted to give you some highlights of all the things, some of the other things besides COVID that are going on in our health system. We're still working every day. We're still growing. We're still trying to meet the needs of all of our patients and all of our citizens as we move through this pandemic. But the healthcare system has not slowed down. It continues to grow. There's still other morbidities, other disease processes that our patients have that are not all centered around COVID, and our health system still has to meet those needs also. As I said earlier, I've reported each time I've reported to you, our staff is stressed. They're tired. They've been in a marathon for several months, working 7 days a week. Health system doesn't slow down, doesn't stop. It doesn't stop for the weekend. So, but they are dedicated and very, very determined to meet the needs of our patients. So, I would like to, give them all a shout out, and I'd like, when you see those people and those people talk to you, please tell them how much you appreciate the work that they're doing every day on the front line. But there's one thing that I'd like to ask you guys to help us do. And you all have influence in your communities. You all have people you talk to every day that you have the ability to shape their opinion and also give them advice. And we need your help to get the word out that these holidays, as we come into them, could be I don't want to sound pessimistic, but they could be the deadliest time of this pandemic. We really need to focus on asking the question of, is there really a need to gather if you don't have to? It seems to be through our public health team. They'll be the first to tell you that it's the social gatherings that are spreading this pandemic or spreading this virus more than ever. And we really appreciate your help in getting the message out to wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, and really ask yourself the question on, do I really need to gather or not? How important is it, and what's the consequence going to be with family gatherings at this time through the holidays? Dr. Gann and let him give you a brief update on where we are currently in the COVID situation.
Hi, Dr. Gann.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I just have a handful of slides, and this will be kind of a preview for the Public Health Subcommittee meeting tomorrow. So just a couple of slides. This slide shows, is updated through the numbers reported by the state today. The blue bars are the daily number of cases, and the red dashed line is the 7-day moving average. You can see over the last 2.5 weeks, Oklahoma's gone straight up. And this is the number from today. It's distressing. This is exponential spread of the virus throughout Oklahoma. Every county in Oklahoma is in the red as far as the daily number of cases, and it's looking really dire. The deaths in Oklahoma have varied between an average of 10 per day to 17 or 18 per day, pretty ragged. Over the last several days, we've gone back up. So, as our hospitals fill up and people more at risk become infected, I expect those numbers to rise again. Cherokee Nation, we're just got another load of cases at noon. So we're over 4,500 cases now for the total, with over 1,000 active cases within Cherokee Nation. And this is just our patients. So the daily number of cases, this is similar to the graph I showed you for Oklahoma. The blue bars are the daily number of cases. And this is based on the date of test. So these last few days will go up a little bit. So we went from 2.5, 3 weeks ago to about 30 cases per day. So we bumped up to almost 100 cases per day, and now we flattened out around 80 cases per day. It's really stressing our system. But the exponential rise over the last 2 weeks. If you look at the number of cases per week, this goes from a Sunday to a Saturday. So it was 550 was on the week ending last Saturday. So we broke a record. And that's with only 4 days of testing. So we had a 4-day week last week. We do test them on the weekends, of course, but that's just through the emergency room. And I expect we'll break another record this week. So far, we'll see how it goes. If you look at the number of tests, we haven't increased the availability of our testing over the last many months. And so this increase in testing per day is based on demand. And so you can see a week ago we did 876 tests. And over those 4 days, a tremendous increase in the number of tests. We're averaging about 450 tests a day, which is remarkable that our staff can do that. And the demand seems to continue to increase. If you look at tests per week, again, in 4 days of our, the main times that we do testing, we broke another record with over 3,000 tests in a week. This is from our dashboard. This is the daily number of cases per 10,000 people averaged over, per 100,000 people averaged over the last 7 days. And it's as bad as it has been. The bottom mark for red is 25 cases per day. You can see we're well above that throughout Cherokee Nation. Adair County and Cherokee County are particularly bad. You can see Craig County as well is up to 96. So this information is updated daily on our dashboard. So overall, I'm very concerned that the amount of virus in our community is at its highest level. It's spreading exponentially. And I don't know where the peak is, and I don't know when the peak will be. So our models just haven't worked out for that. Again, our dashboard, that's the address at the top. You can get to the dashboard through the Cherokee Nation main webpage, through the COVID page on there. And we've got 7 different dashboards you can look at. I think what I really like is this testing calculator. So if you've been exposed This will help you figure out if you need to get tested and when you should. So I urge you to take a look at that. It's updated by noon every day, 7 days a week by our EPI team. And it's good information for what's going on. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gann. So as you can see, we need your help. We need your help and your influence in helping us spread the message. We've been being pushed as much as we possibly can and feel like we're fighting a losing battle by these numbers continuing to rise like they have. And so I'm pleading to you to help us spread the message in your communities and help us to slow this down so our health system doesn't become overrun.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. It's an excellent report today. We have 3 people I know in here who are wanting to ask questions, and I'm going to ask that we all be very mindful of our times because we have a report by Dr. Pettit, Dean of our medical school. The first one I think was Joe.
Jones, I got 3 questions. We hear on the news about the Pfizer vaccine and when we'll receive. They're saying June. The second question was in your distribution plan that you have ready to go. Would I guess that you're going to start at the hospitals first and work your way down and go that way? And the last thing is staffing. If we're going to add these hours, are we still having people coming in trying to fill positions so we take off some of the stress on some of these employees?
So the first question was distribution on when we thought we would have it.
Yes.
We anticipate that we will be getting it shortly within the month. They're telling us probably by the end of this month we will have our first allocations. The way that is shipped is very technical because of the ultra cold storage facility that has to be shipped in. But we are being told that we should be receiving that by the end of the month. There is a possibility that we will get allocation from IHS. We are also working with the states because not all hospitals have the ability to store this type of vaccine at this type of temperature. So we're working with them to possibly be distribution centers where we have this in our area, where we can hold the vaccine until the hospital is ready to administer it, and then we can transport it to them, and then they can administer it to their staff. So initially on the distribution, yes, there is going to be a tiered distribution of what is who gets it first, and then down the line, depending on the availability and the production of that vaccine. We don't know those numbers yet. We don't know how much we're getting. We don't know. There's still a lot of questions that we're still waiting on answers. But we're meeting constantly and consistently, keeping in contact with both the state and IHS to make sure that as soon as it's available, we're ready to receive it. And the third question, it's kind of broken up. I couldn't hear all of your third question.
Staffing, if we're going to extend hours, are we still having people come in to get hired to take off some of that from the employees?
The way that we're going to be extending hours is, number one, we utilize flex staffing where we can. We are utilizing some PRN staffing where we can. But it is stressful. It is a burden on our staff to ask them to do more and more than they've ever been asked to do. We're trying to alleviate that as much as we possibly can, but we also recognize that healthcare is not an 8-to-5 job. And sometimes it requires us to do things that are outside that 8-to-5 time frame. And for the most part, our staff has been fantastic. They've worked, and anything we've asked or any needs that our communities have had, they've been willing to bend over backwards to make that happen. So we're very, very appreciative, and you know, like I said, if you get a chance to thank some of these people face to face or on a phone call, they appreciate it, and it's just a lot of work to do right now.
Okay, about 4 minutes, people. Janice.
Dr. Jones, first thing I wanted to do was pass on, I had a constituent who had visited the dentist at the Salina Clinic, and she emailed me, texted me, and called me to make sure that I knew what a good experience that was. So I hope you will pass that on. And that's not the first compliment I've had out of that dental clinic, so pass that on. My second question is, I had a constituent call me this morning who thought she had been exposed to COVID-19 last Wednesday. She wanted to get tested. She asked me how to get tested in Tahlequah. I said, why would you not go to Salina? She had been told that at Salina it took like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to get results back, but that if you came to Tahlequah, you had them in 24 hours. So what's going on with that?
Well, I don't know what she's been told, but that's not typically the case. I think I'll let Dr. Gann speak to that because he knows he sees those test results as quickly as anybody. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Gann, that the turnaround for LabCorp is about 24 to 48 hours max right now.
Yes, sir. It's generally about that time. There's some variation. If you get tested on Friday or Saturday, it's an extra 12 hours to get the test results back. Our tests that go to OSU take a little bit longer, about 3 days. So, if you get a send-out test today in any of our clinics and it goes to LabCorp, we'll have it back by tomorrow afternoon or evening. It's really impressive what the labs have done. 3-day turnaround time from OSU is just really impressive. And LabCorp, all of our tests go to Dallas there. So there are, a handful of cases where the lab test gets delayed and it's 3 days or 3.5 days. But a far cry better than what it was back in May and June.
Okay, so my question is, does it matter where they go to get their test?
No, they're all utilizing the same criteria, the same, the criteria for a rapid test versus a reference lab test, and they're all being taken the same way at the same clinics. We've tried to standardize that process across our system.
Okay. Well, that's what I suspected, but I wanted to get a definitive answer from you. Thank you. That's all I have, Mary.
Counselor Duncan.
Dr. Jones, I had a couple of sweet elderly ladies approach me, and I'm going to follow up to this with the email to you guys and Chief of Staff and Chief. I wanted to give you a heads up. So her idea was essentially to adopt a healthcare provider, whether that be a doctor, nurse, etc. And I know you talked about how stressed the staff is right now. So essentially what they want to provide for them is a hot meal for them one night when they get off of work. And I know that there's concerns about potlucks and touching different utensils in a large gathering, but I think that maybe if we set some parameters, individualized packages, I think probably restaurants would even get on board with that in adopting, adopt a healer or something like that you could call it, where restaurants would even probably get on board and pre-package some individualized meals. Because these ladies' idea was that they had a niece that was a nurse and she's been working long hours and she's got kids at home. When she comes home, she doesn't feel like cooking, so they've been cooking her a meal every week. And I just thought that was a really good idea and probably an idea that is probably achievable. But I wanted to give you a heads up, and I'll follow up with an email on that.
Okay, that sounds good. I know we have a lot of restaurants that have stepped up, and even some of the civic organizations and have provided care baskets with individually wrapped items and things of that nature to our urgent care and our ER and to our hospital staff. So that's always appreciated very much by our staff.
Thank you.
Counselor Dobbin.
Yes, I don't know if this is a Dr. Jones or Dr. Gann question on the vaccine. Dr. Jones, just following up, you mentioned that are all the proposed vaccines involve a 2-dose regimen? Like you mentioned, you take one and then wait 21 days, and then a second one, and then you have to wait another 28 days, I guess did I misunderstand that? Is that true for all the proposed vaccines?
The only one that has emergency use authorization currently is the Pfizer vaccine. And it is, you take your first dose, 21 days later, you take your second dose, and at day 28 from your first dose, you have the antibodies, the T-cell antibodies. So that's the only one that has emergency use authorization currently. We're still waiting on all the details for the second one from Moderna that was announced this morning.
So at day 28 from the first dose, you should have pretty good immunity. That day 28, is that what you said?
That's our understanding currently, yes.
Is this may be a hypothetical, but from day 1 to 28, does that patient or that individual have any better immunity than they did before they got the first dose?
No, not that the studies have shown.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Councilor Shambaugh.
Dr. Jones, I was looking over the Health Committee report. On the contract health, is there any way that you could put a monthly number of people who apply for contract health? Instead of just the percentage, could you give us a breakdown just of how many people actually wanted payment for something?
Like how many people were approved, what that number is, rather than a percentage?
Yes.
The number of patients served through that?
How many showed up, how many were approved, or applied, how many were approved? And one more thing, and I don't think this is for you, but COVID deaths, it doesn't say how many we've lost or even the age group. You know, you hear that obviously our elders are more susceptible, but now I hear that the younger are passing away too. Is there any way we could get numbers for our total number of people who have passed away and maybe the groups that are more susceptible than others?
Well, I'll let Dr. Gann, he is the one who communicates regularly through our Oklahoma FIO system. So Dr. Gann, do you have a answer for that possibly?
Yes, sir. I do have some graphs for the state. The state puts out a weekly EPI report, and I can send those out. You know, for Cherokee Nation, I was looking up our latest numbers. The latest numbers I have are from Friday, and I can't quite find it. I think we've had 32 of our patients or citizens die, and they're mostly elderly. But across the state, you know, our numbers and percentages match up with the state as a whole. But I'll send that out and you can study it. Now we'll definitely discuss it in more detail tomorrow at the Public Health Subcommittee meeting.
Well, that'll work. I just think there's still people out there who don't believe this is real. And I think we need to be able to give them that information. One other thing
Yes, sir, I sure will.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I'll have that available tomorrow. We'll dig into it.
All right, thank you. And one other thing I need to bring up is, do you know if they have hired a janitor at Sam Hyer Clinic? I've got several complaints from some of the employees. It's putting a big strain on them not being fully staffed. Do you know what that status is, sir?
I do not, but I can check into it for you.
All right, thank you. That's all I
Councilor
have.
Crittenden.
Yes, sir. Doctor, like everyone here, thank you for what you and your staff are doing. We appreciate that. One question on, is it still the protocol? If you're positive, we're going to call you. If we're negative, it'll be on the, they can find it within the website. Is that still the protocol?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Buzzard.
Yes, Dr. Jones on contract health. What is their policy on denial letters? I've had some people that live north of 412 Highway that use Claremore service unit, and they said they have to get 3 denials now. I didn't know that.
I don't think I heard all of your question. You said you had some people that live north of 412 or in the Claremore service unit, and whether or not they need to be approved or denied. Is that?
Yes, that's basically the question, but the question is, they're telling me that they have to write 3 denial letters. And I didn't know that was the case.
Well, they do have to be, have to get, since it's through the Claremore service unit, they have to get a denial, and it has to be denied before we can start picking it up, and it has to be passed from them to us at that point. So, there is a process, and for those folks that live in that service unit, it's different than the folks that live in outside of that service unit. Unfortunately, that's just the process in order for us to, because those funds are in a specific CHISDA, which is that area around Claremore service unit.
But my question is, do they have to get 3 denials?
At least.
3.
They do have to get, it has to be released to us through their denial. So there is a denial, an appeal, and then a denial. So I'm not sure it's 3, but I do know there's a denial and an appeal process before it comes to us.
Is that the same policy for the Hastings Hospital and Claremore Hospital for denials?
No, because we have different control over anything outside of that Claremore service unit. So we don't control that area until it gets denied, and then we pick it up after that. But they have control over it prior to that denial.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So how many denials do you have to get from Hastings if you go to Hastings Hospital?
Well, if it's denied, then there's the same thing. If a claim is denied for some reason that's outside of the normal contract health process, then the patient has the ability to appeal that denial to a committee that will look it over and make a decision on whether to overturn that appeal or to uphold it. So that's the process that runs for Cherokee Nation, and that same process would apply once it leaves the Claremore service unit. So if it left the Claremore service unit and it was outside of our policy and it was denied initially, then it would go through an appeal process to Cherokee Nation to see if it could be appealed and paid. So technically there is 2 processes for that, since we pick up those patients inside that Claremore service unit as an addendum or as an additional coverage, so to speak, once they get denied there.
And I understand the difference in the organizations as far as the contract health goes. 3 was kind of caught me by surprise.
Well, the difference is that we get the money for everything outside of that. Claremore service unit gets the money for the people inside of Claremore service unit. So we don't get the initial money for that those contract health dollars. So they have to be, the money is supposed to be spent in that geographic location, and once it's denied and they say, no, we're not going to pay that, then they can bring that, if they're a Cherokee citizen, they can bring that claim to us, and then we can pick it up even though it's outside of our unit, because we don't use federal dollars for that. We use the additional 5% money to pick that up because it's outside of our geographic CHISDA.
Yes, I understand that. And I guess probably what I need to do is call Claremore and ask for their policies. Are they requiring 3? But our policy as far as using Cherokee Nation tribal dollars is not that policy. Am I correct?
Right, so their policy, and the way I understand the way, and, George Valier would have to answer this, but my understanding is that they break their money down by month. And when they hit that limit for that month, they shut it off until the next month. So, it doesn't matter, that is my understanding of how they do their process. And then those get pushed over to us once they start their denials.
Okay, thank you. I'll give George a call and find out their policy. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Jones, I'll make my question just one today. Do we have the ability to store that vaccine at 120 to 150 degrees below Fahrenheit?
We do. We have 2 of those freezers that store at that temperature currently. We have 5 more on the way that are going to be distributed throughout our organization or through our health system, so that they're put in specific locations that are going to be closer to where we're going to be administering that vaccine. So we have preemptively got ourselves in a position ready to receive it and administer it. And that's the reason we're working with the state to hopefully hold some of that vaccine for our local hospitals that are outside of our system, because most of the hospitals don't have the capacity to store that vaccine at that temperature. So we're going to try to be good partners for our communities and hold that until they're ready to administer it and then be able to send it to them when they're ready and ready to start administering to their folks.
I appreciate that. This is a really informative report today. Dr. Jones, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And now, council, it is my honor to get to introduce you all to Dr. William Pettit. He's past president of the Oklahoma Osteopathic Association. He is he's board certified in family practice. He practiced in Lawton, Oklahoma in family practice for many years before he accepted a position at Oklahoma State University College of Health Sciences, where he headed up rural family health. That is his area of specialty, and he is Oklahoma Osteopathic Association. He's a former Doctor of the Year by that organization, recognizing him for his outstanding leadership. He is the first dean of the College of Osteopathic Medicine at the Cherokee Nation, which is the first tribally owned medical school. We were given a tour of this school. Counselor Dobbins and I went on it about approximately a month ago. Amazing, overwhelming technology you could only dream of, and I'm really proud of it. And Dr. Pettit, are you with us today?
I am.
Good to see you. We need to make your screen a little bigger. There he is. Oh, look at that. That's an orange background you got there. Was that on purpose?
This is in our large conference room over at the primary care, old primary care clinic area at the Hastings Hospital that we were graciously allowed to use. So yeah, it's on purpose. Would you like me to start?
Oh, please do. I'm sorry we're a little late on time, but you go right ahead. We're all looking forward to this.
We're going to go ahead and share my slide. And we'll try to move through this fairly rapidly. I do want to give you some updates and show you some pictures to accentuate what Councilwoman Shaw said, that we've made a lot of progress that tour that you took. So the bonus is just to give you an update on buildings, the faculty, students, and two other things. So first off, everyone in this meeting is aware that we, as the University College of Osteopathic Medicine, have a primary mission to train primary care physicians for rural and underserved. And with this great partnership with the Nation, we now share that mission of improving health care, not only for rural and underserved, but in the tribal nation. So very, very thankful for this great relationship. This is the original rendering of the medical school. I can look at the right upper hand part of the screen. If I'm not covering it, they're still using the Power O. So this shows OSU's going to the OSU, which I can't do those things. But so this is the initial rendering. Today we'll look at new things. I just have one thing I want to thank Dr. Jones, Dr. Montgomery, the entire Cherokee Nation Health Services, the Cherokee Nation and Cherokee businesses for their support. As you know, with COVID-19, in April, we actually stopped construction for 45 days, which was a significant change in what was going to happen with the beginning of our classes that were scheduled for August. So in that 45 days, we were unable to get into the basement and first floor that we planned on, which we needed in order to start classes in August. And again, because of the great Cherokee Nation, they gave us those facilities that I mentioned, in addition to 2 large rooms in CNOC at the Cherokee Nation Outpatient Health Center, that allowed us to set up our aspect medicine lab and our clinical skills lab and set up a large lecture room. Because of that, we were able to go to our accrediting body and they allowed us to start our semester. Had that not happened, we would have been in a position to have to bus students back and forth between Tahlequah and Tulsa. And that was a very expensive venture, plus not one we wanted to do. We did have to change our anatomy curriculum to a virtual anatomy during the first semester. We usually started dissection the first semester. So we went to a virtual anatomy, which was actually on the mind of the anatomy faculty for a considerable period of time. It's been very successful. We'll still do dissection, but it'll start in the second semester. So first thing I wanted to tell the health committee is that phenomenal support, and appreciate Dr. Jones, Mr. Hale, Dr. Montgomery, et cetera, and the Cherokee Nation for that. I wanted to show you just what we're using at CNOC. This is a picture on the left of our aspect medicine lab, and on the right lower, we're actually using that same facility to do clinical skills, which they're showing them how to use otoscope. The picture above on the right is our lecture room, and both of these are activated in CNOC. And just so happens that the young lady in the front there is our class president, Caitlin Cosby. So this is the space, the temporary space that allowed us to remain on campus. This is where we are today. This looks just like the rendering. And it's phenomenal. It's beautiful, and I couldn't be more proud to be part of this. We have substantial completion and signed certificates to that effect to occupy the basement and the first floor, and we've done that. We're moving in properly. We're moving in equipment. We're moving in staff. We're moving in furniture. We had the punch-out list, or looking at the second floor last Friday, and Friday the 13th didn't go bad. It went well. And the second floor is coming along beautifully. We hope by the end of the week we could have perhaps again substantial completion and ability to occupy. And by the 1st of December, the third floor, which will allow us then by the first couple weeks in December to really start amassing our entrance into that building. And we're very, very excited. I want to share a tour of just a few places within the building. Also, Ms. Mary Shaw and Dr. Dobbins are in there, and then Principal Chief Hoskin was there. On the left there, the lady with the small bonnet is my boss, President Casey Marie Schrum, who's the president over the Center for Health Sciences. This is a lecture hall, and the beauty of the lecture hall is that it will accommodate 90 students. And we have 54 in our first class. We're accredited for 50, but we can take 8% above if we elect to. And this was when Mary was there, and I want to just show you before, and this is after. Now, on the left-hand part of the screen is if you're a student in the back of the room looking forward to the lecturer. On the right side of the screen is if you're the lecturer looking out toward the students. It's just phenomenal. This is one of two classrooms. We also have one like this also on the third floor. This is on the left side. Could be individual groups to study on each table, or there are podiums to do actual lectures with smaller groups. I believe it's up to 30 students could be in that room. And on the right side, we have several of these small group study rooms, and our students, well, they have to limit how many under the COVID conditions. Really love to get together in small groups and use the whiteboard to study and take notes. So this is a small group study room. Here again on the tour, this is the aspect manipulative medicine area. When when I showed you CNOC, where ospec medicine was occurring, those tables, which we purchased, will now come over to this area, and ospec medicine will be out of this area. This is Dr. Natasha Bray in the front, who's our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Accreditation, and she's a phenomenal lady that's done phenomenal work with this facility. This is down the basement now. We've left the first floor going down. This is the neuroanatomy area. The tables are not up yet. Neuroanatomy, of course, is the study of the brain and the nervous system, so they'll be sitting at the table dissecting brains, etc. So it's a wonderful thing to think about. But on the left, right in front of orange, is actually Ashmore, who's we were able to hire to help us on this project. She's with the Cherokee Nation before that for 2.5 decades or so. So phenomenal as well. So this is neuroanatomy. Just on the other side of the wall to the left is then the anatomy lab. On the right side of the screen is where the students will actually work on cadavers. You see the electrical used for saws, etc., and tables to work on each end, and then individual tables for cadavers. On the left side of the screen is our storage unit, which has 6 compartments and the ability to store 5 cadavers in each. So it's storage for 30 cadavers. Phenomenal as well. There's other offices, there's other areas there, prep room, etc., but that's the main structure. Also on the first floor, going back up, we have a simulation center. Those that have toured our larger medical school building and also have seen that simulation center in full activity. This is just the beginning, and I've been informed that our first simulation mannequin that came has been named for Simman. So there you have it. This is his arrival on campus, the table and the body are all together. And we are looking forward to completing our simulation center over the next month and a half or two. And it'll involve emergency medicine simulation, pediatric simulation, OBGYN, deliver babies, etc. In the pediatrics, there will be a NICU, PICU kind of setup for really sick kids and just delivery of normal, healthy babies. And then the last one will be an internal medicine exam room. So we'll have a very, very robust simulation center. When you walk in the front door, that's the first thing you'll see. So for students, we name our classes by when they're expected to graduate, not by entering. So this is the class of 2024. Those students that entered starting August the 4th this year. And this picture was taken on Women in Medicine Day. So you'll not see any of our male medical students there or me, because this is just in honor of those women in medicine. And I'm proud to say that we have about a 50-50, 50% female, 50% male. We have, as the PowerPoint shows, 22 Native Americans. That's 4 of those are Cherokee Nation. And we also have representation from the Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole Nation, all in first-year class. We're in the process already of recruiting for next year, so it'll be the class of 2025 to enter in 2021. We've already had 15 accepted missions, and of those 15, 20% are Native American, and I'm proud to say they're all Cherokee. And we still have right now 19 offers pending, which means they've been accepted. But medical students who get accepted more than one place have an opportunity to pick and choose where they are accepted. But we've offered 19 admissions. They have until about the middle of December to make a decision, and we continue to interview. So, by the way, we have about 4,000 applications a year for 165 positions. The medical school is very competitive. The beauty here is Oklahoma State University has a requirement by the state regions to accept at least 75% Oklahomans. And I would tell you that we are always well above that cap. But so we're doing well. I just want to give you briefly just a composite picture. I just think I've had these for years and years, and it's amazing to look at these pictures of these young men and women and watch how they do over their career. I want to tell you a little bit, we're going to have a break at Thanksgiving. I'm going to send the students home. By the way, you should know we've been doing online asynchronous telecast of lectures this entire semester. We bring students on campus for testing. We bring students on campus for required laboratories, and all of those functions we maintain social distancing. So we'll have them go home in November, and they won't come back until the start of the spring semester, January 6th, 2021. I want to also mention that Dr. Jones mentioned accreditation visits. We have our accreditation visit for what our bodies call this Commission on Psychotic Accreditation in February the 9th through the 10th. It's virtual. This will allow us to be accredited finally, a final accreditation to start because it's considered a substantial change of education because we're moving a new location and then we're increasing class size. So we're looking forward to that visit. Again, Dr. Bray is our head of accreditation, does a phenomenal job. This was taken October, Halloween, October 31. There you are, Dr. Montgomery, right by the flag. Anyway, this was in Mount Chairman, Bill John Baker, and our faculty and staff now, since this picture have been hired, we now have 17 faculty. That involves 7 clinical faculty, so family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and 24 staff to do our student wellness, to do our admissions, bursar, finance, etc. So we're very much a family at OSU, and we're excited. And these faculty are on our campus, by the way. They're not assigned to Tulsa to come over here periodically. They're assigned to be in Tahlequah, and if they have to go to Tulsa, they do. So that is faculty, staff, and facility. And with that, I could close, but with your indulgence, I would like to just briefly brag one more time on the Cherokee Nation. The complete pipeline so we can get positioned. The rural, underserved, and tribal nation community, and tribal nation. So this medical school, for tribally affiliated medical school in the United States, sitting on Cherokee Nation land, be a true start of a rural medical education at a rural tribal site. The next step is postgraduate medical education, or what we call residencies, after they finish medical school. I'm very, very proud, again, of the Cherokee Nation Health Services who work with OSU and has created their own Cherokee Nation Family Medicine residency. It's accredited by the American College of Graduate Medical Education. We come for residents when the full 3 years is in effect. We currently have 11 residents, and of those 11 residents, 3 are Cherokee Nation citizens, and if you do the math, that's 27%. Plus, 10 of the 11 are graduates of our osteopathic medical school. 1 comes from Des Moines University and Des Moines College of Osteopathic Medicine. So we're very supportive. Doug Nolan, been one of your employees for years and years. One of the most phenomenal men I've ever met. He is what they call the program director and runs that program. The last thing would be that we do have a multi-million-dollar grant that we've got through HRSA, Health Resource Service Administration, called the Medical Student Education Program. That grant is set up specifically to encourage young men and women and set up programming so that when they finish their education, they'll select a residency in rural and tribal, and then subsequently practice medicine in that same setting. That's the sole purpose of that grant. And one of the processes of that grant is to develop what's called a tribal medical track. So in the third and fourth year, when medical students go out and do their clinical rotations, these medical women will principally be in the Salinas, in the Jays, in the Muskogees, etc. So on your facilities, as well as some with your other tribal nations, Choctaw, Chickasaw, etc., but principally in your 14th district area. So that's our goal. That's the reason for us being on the grant. And with that said, if I haven't said it enough, I think the relationship and the partnership we've had with the Cherokee Nation is just outstanding. And there's no other way this, I don't think, could have happened without this partnership. So with that, Councilwoman Shaw, I'll stop. But this is my contact information. This is our new address when we're in the building. I'm currently at the 100 Southwest as part of the administration office, but extremely happy at any time to answer phone calls or set up meetings where we can by Zoom, etc. Councilman Donovan and Dr. Donovan and I have had several discussions, and so with that said, I would answer any questions. Try to go fast. I know you have more things to do. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions on council here to ask Dr. Pettit? Dr. Pettit, or I guess Dean Pettit, we don't have any questions at this time, but we may take you on your offer to have you come back and speak to us at a later date. But thank you so much. And on behalf of council, I'd like to say Wado. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd be honored anytime, and always want to be supportive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, any other old business?
Councilor, if I may.
Who are we speaking with here?
Sounds like Dr. Jones.
This is Dr. Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Jones. I didn't see you.
I have an answer for Councilor Shampoff that asked about the number of referrals, so I thought I'd get that to you before we got off the call. So we approved 105,972 referrals last year.
Thank you for that. I'm sure he'll appreciate that information, Dr. Jones, and I really appreciate your being expeditious in getting that for him. Thank you so much. And I know we all look forward to hearing from our public health department tomorrow. So thank you all again. We surely appreciate everyone's efforts, and we're grateful. Thank you so much. Okay, and any old business? Excuse me, any announcements? I have one question. How many of you all think we should continue hearing elder care and PACE in the future? Because we cannot really make any suggestions from a legal standpoint to them, and they have been gracious enough to report to us. Do we wish to continue to have their reports quarterly? If you're in favor of that, everyone please say aye. All those opposed to this, or excuse me, all those who wish not to hear from them, say aye.
What do we do?
Okay, let's start.
Let's start over on that.
Do that
Okay.
again.
If you wish to have elder care and PACE pace to report to us on a quarterly basis, please say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, please say same sign. Okay, then we'll continue to hear their reports. Thank you all for that. And if there is no, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for December the 14th at 1 p.m. And Councilor Shambaugh?
Dr. Jones, thank you. I had to step out, but thank you for getting those numbers.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Thank you all so much. Meeting adjourned.